What is up, guys, and welcome back to another South Hills Motocross video. Today we're going to be jumping right in on this 2003 Yamaha TTR 225 project that I picked up a couple months ago for $300. As you can see with a little general walk around of the bike, it's going to need a lot of work. But that being said, it's going to make a great bike to make a project out of. And I'm going to be able to show you guys a couple tips and tricks that I use when I flip a bike or clean a bike up like this. As you can see, we've got everything from a dent in the rim to leaking fork seals, and in this case, the bike hasn't run for a number of years as well. So today we're going to jump right in, and I'm going to show you guys how to clean a carburetor. First off here, we're going to start with removing the seat. It's going to be two 10mm bolts under the rear fender. Once we have that removed, now we can move on to taking the tank off. It's going to be three 10mm bolts, one in the rear and one on each side. With the three bolts removed from the gas tank, we can proceed to taking it off the bike. With the seat and the tank now removed from the bike, we can proceed with removing the carburetor. First off, we're going to take the two hose clamps and loosen them. This requires a Phillips head screwdriver, or in this case, a drill with a Phillips head bit. Again, you only have to loosen these clamps and you don't have to completely remove them. Every dirt bike is different, and in this case, we're also going to have to remove the throttle cable using an 8mm box wrench. With that fully loose, remove it from its mount, and now you can proceed to taking the throttle cable out. Now with the throttle cable out of the way, we can get to removing the carburetor. Just use a flathead screwdriver at each end of the carburetor to persuade the rubber boot from coming off. Although this might take a little bit, trust me, it'll work, and with a little bit of effort, it will come out. And just like that, now we have the carburetor free from the bike. Take note that there may be a couple fuel lines and overflow lines on the back of the carburetor that you didn't notice before. That's no biggie, just take a pair of vice grips or channel locks and pry back and forth until that fuel line comes off. As stated previously, every bike is going to be different, so in this case we're also going to need a 12mm box wrench to remove the choke assembly. Now with the carburetor removed from the bike and a clean surface area to work on, we're going to jump right into taking this carburetor apart. As you can see, it's dirty on the outside, and trust me, it will be as dirty on the inside. There's going to be 4 Phillips head screws on each corner of the carburetor bolt. When you have the chance, remove those, either with a Phillips head screwdriver or with a drill. Now with the 4 screws removed, we can proceed to removing the bolt. And just like I had warned you, it is just as dirty on the inside, if not maybe even a little bit worse. Taking a closer look here, we can see that there's a lot of varnish on all the components inside, including the jets. Don't worry though, we will get those cleaned up in no time. After further examination of the carburetor, I came to the conclusion that the float needle was actually stuck in the collar. This was caused by years of sitting and bad fuel. Although there are a lot of carburetor cleaning products out on the market, I use Super Clean. Especially in situations like this, where there's a lot of varnish and built up years of bad gas, I find that using this degreaser works the best. Now with a healthy coat of the degreaser on the carburetor, we can take a wire brush and lightly scrub around all the areas.
Don't worry
about getting this carburetor perfectly clean, because once we have it apart, then we'll be able to take all the parts individually and scrub them down. When taking apart a carburetor, we're going to start with the main jet here. All it is a flathead screwdriver, and it'll come right out. Although it may not be visible at first, the pilot jet rests in this collar. All it's going to be is a small flathead screwdriver, and it will come out similar to the main jet. Next step here, we're going to remove the float. As you can see, I already have the pins slightly pried out, and I used a flathead to do so. Now in this case, since the needle is stuck in the collar, we're just going to pop the float out and then worry about bending the little bracket back in shape later on. Now that we have the float out of the way, we can proceed with taking the needle out. Again, we're going to use our pliers and lightly pull on the needle until it comes free. Now we're going to take our Phillips head and we're going to undo the lock screw that holds the collar in place. Although this part is usually overlooked, removing this collar, cleaning it, and inspecting it is a crucial part to making sure your carburetor operates properly. As you can see up close, there's even a rubber O-ring that rests on this collar. Inspect that and make sure that gasket is still usable. If not, replace it. Otherwise, your carburetor is likely to overflow and leak. We're now going to let the carburetor soak in a little bit of the super clean, and while we're doing that, we're going to move on to the carburetor bowl. As you guys can see, there's a lot of varnish on it, so we're going to cover it in super clean and we're going to get to scrubbing. As you can see, here's a little side-by-side comparison after about 30 seconds of scrubbing with the super clean. We're now moving on to the collar which the needle rests in. We're just going to scrub the outside to make sure there's no leftover contaminants or bad fuel when we put it back in the carburetor. Now on to the needle itself. Gripping it with the pliers gives us a good sturdy handle on it when we go to scrub it. If you guys recall, the needle was actually stuck in the collar. This is because of the old fuel gumming up and holding it in there. It's crucial that we make sure this is clean, otherwise it will not be able to monitor and control the fuel into the carburetor, and you will end up with your carburetor overflowing or leaking. In this next step here, I'm cleaning out the holes in the jets. I'm actually using a grinder wire wheel and pulling aside one of the little wires because it fits perfectly into the jets. Obviously, if you have a correct carburetor cleaning tool, I would recommend that, but if not, then just use one of these little wires. Now that everything's clean, we're going to install the pilot jet. It just goes in the channel, and then you just screw it in with the flathead. Although I didn't show it on camera, I did do some more scrubbing with the super clean, and also rinsed out the carburetor with some carb cleaner. Once we have the pilot jet all nice and snug, now we're going to get to installing the main jet. First we want to put the washer in, and now we're going to put the actual main jet in. Again, we're going to use a flathead screwdriver and tighten it till it's snug. Once we have that done, we're going to move on to installing the needle valve collar. Once we push that in, now we're going to take our Phillips head screw that locks it in place and then tighten that down till it's snug. Just like with the carburetor itself, I did a little bit of off-camera cleaning with the float. As you can see, it shined up really nice and it cleaned up well. Next, I installed the needle onto the tab on the float. Once we've done that, now we can put the needle back in the collar and now put the float pin in its respective slots. And just like that, guys, we are done. As you guys can tell, this carburetor looks brand spanking new and definitely a lot better than it did before. Well guys, that is going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed and you guys found this helpful. Again, all dirt bikes are different, but at the end of the day, the concepts are all the same. Using the different products and tools that we use in this video will help you to clean a carburetor the most effectively. With that, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content, not only on this TTR, but also other how-to videos.